So here we are. Let's talk about classes now. So classes of IPv4. So IPv4 has been split into 5 different classes. These classes we using for, let's say, we use these classes to better understand how big is our network. For example, if I'm gonna build a massive network, I should use the network class A. If I'm gonna build a medium size of network, I should use, for better practice, I should use the class B. And if it's a small office, I can use the class C. We do also have the class D address, which is the multicast address, and the class E, which is a research address. So the point of this video now is explain how these classes are splitted. How do I identify if my IP is a class A, B, C, D, or E, and get a better understand that the subnet mask doesn't have a class. So let's start on the class. Let's start on the class A. How do I know if my IP address is a class A? For example, I got IP address 10.1.1.1. Simple IP address. How do I know if my IP address is a class A? To find out what class the IP address is, you should look on the first octet. Just the first octet. The first octet matters. If you look on the first octet and you can see it's a number between 1 to 126, that IP address definitely is a class A. So any IP address starting between 1 and 126, it's a class A IP address. If you go into the class B, let's say for example, I got one IP address, let's say 172.16.1.1, which is a private IP address we saw in the early videos. The 10.1 is a private IP address as well. What kind of class this IP address belongs to? So this IP address 172.16, it's a class B IP address. Why is that? Because the class B, it's the range from 128 up to 191. And again, just the first octet. The first octet, it's the most important one. You understand what class is the IP address looking just on the first octet. And what about the IP address 192.168.10.1? This is the class C IP address. Why is a class C IP address? Because the class C starts on 192, which is our IP address, and goes up to 223. So any IP address on this range, public or private, they are class C address. On this case, we look in just the private IP addresses, but you can also apply for the public IP addresses as well. If we're moving forward, let's go for the class D address. For the class D address, we do have the IPs starting on 224 up to 239. These IP addresses has a relation of, if I got a big company, I can use the class A. If you got a medium company size, I can use the class B address. If I got a small topology, a small network, I can use the class C address. I can use the class C easily with the small networks. And the class D address I can use just for multicast applications or protocols. And most of these IP addresses, the class D address, are reserved for specifically routing protocols. For example, RIP version 2 uses the IP address 224.0.0.9. The Cisco protocol, sorry, the ex-Cisco protocol, which is no more, the EIGRP is an open standard now. The EIGRP, we get used to say this is a Cisco protocol, but it's not anymore. The EIGRP protocol, routing protocol, uses the IP address 224.0.0.10. That's how the IP address talk to each other, how the routing protocols talk to each other in a different routers because they're using the same multicast address. There is a small range in here which is not reserved. We call it as a private multicast address that you can use, but most of them are reserved for routing protocols, for other protocols, and other points as well. The last class in here is the class A address. So the class E address starts on 240 and goes up to 255. This class is reserved for research. So research, normally the research institutions using the class E address starts on 240 and goes up to 255. But the most common ones that we use in every single day, it's this three in here. Especially the private IP addresses, which is the IP addresses that we can use inside of our company. Okay? So these classes are divided by 5, so 5 different classes, A, B, C, D, and E. And my tip for the exam is write down the first 4 classes. Okay, the first 4 classes. Why not the first 5? Make it easy, save some time. Write down the first 4, which is not inside of the first 4. Of course, it's going to be on the last one. So just make that easy. Just make that quickly for you. And write down there in your notes before you start your exam inside of the test room. That's going to be useful. And one thing we don't want to, it's making a mistake with these classes, which is let's say it's a basic question that you can have asking for one IP address. They're probably gonna ask like this: the IP address of 117.10.255.254. What class is this IP address? So 117, it's inside of this range. Because it's inside of this range, for sure you can say it's a class A. Please don't get confused if somebody says that. What about the 117.10.255.254 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0? What class is this IP address? May you thinking, wow, the 117, the first octet, it's inside of the class A range, so it's a class A. Yes, you're right. But then you look in the subnet mask and say, wow, this subnet mask, it's a class C subnet mask. Wrong. Subnet mask doesn't have a class. The subnet mask, it's just, I'm going to talk about subnet mask on the next video, but basically subnet mask, it's just to represent what portion of the IP address is network and what portion of the IP address is host. The problem is, in most of the occasions, you use this subnet mask with a class C IP address. But that doesn't mean this subnet mask, it's a class C subnet mask, because subnet mask doesn't have a class. Subnet mask is just a number with no class, and please don't make that mistake, okay? If you got any questions on daily work or on the exam, asking how do I know the class of the IP address, you can answer for sure. I can know the class of the IP address looking on the first octet. If I know the first octet and I can remember this listing here, I will know what kind of class the IP address belongs to. Okay? Alright, so our next video is going to be subnet mask. Looking forward for that, and I see you on the next video.